could be a blogger, Mr. Look. Hi, welcome to my channel.
I'm savoring my last night with my beautiful head of hair. I'm gonna miss it. Tomorrow, at this time, I will look like the screamer of my favorite metal band, August Burns Red, named Jake Lurs. I'm excited and also nervous. I don't know why. I've shaved my head once before, and it was in Australia. It was basically because the guy giving me a haircut, who I lived with, didn't know what he was doing and didn't realize that taking the guard off would actually make me pretty much bald. I might have footage of that.
Get out in the sun and get a bit of colour on that.
Oh my gosh.
This is a little Superman curl.
Should I wear it down like this?
I think we should go to McDonald's with it though. Really. People need to see it.
You buy me an ice cream cone.
Oh, bye.
And then I'll shave it off.
Yeah.
And I don't have to wear a shirt.
No shirt.
So anyway, guys, tomorrow I won't have this beautiful hair, so say goodbye to it. I'll see you tomorrow. Switch down.
Scarlett, no phones. Oh my god. It's not. Yeah. Mister, how are you feeling?
Then I go.
I feel the same so far. You got him lit sideways.
After just
Disappointed!
Nothing below here.
oh my god! Oh my god!
I don't know the whole back.
Chita, voy.
I'll have to see it and then decide. Does it look bald?
Yes.
Ahorita todavía se puede, todavía no está pelo. So I can still write you know how you can write it.
You can see yourself now, mister. Yes.
Oh wow. I look so hardcore.
Yes. Amazing. Does it hurt, mister? I'm here right now. Mister, how do you feel that your boyfriend, that your husband cut his hair?
It's a very interesting choice.
Dog, mister, how do you feel now?
Mr. has
Feel light.
And this is Mr. Renault's class. Yes, look, it's so beautiful. Mister, how does it feel to shave your head off?
Very light and cold. But we gotta go. You guys have to go to class.
Mister, vlogging, mister. No,
No,
mister, no.
Hey, buddy. I'm still not used to this, but let me tell you what a bad idea is. A bad idea is watching the movie The Ring until about 10 p.m. and then having to walk home all alone in a foreign city where it's pitch black and everything looks like it belongs in a horror movie. I mean, I was nervous. Like literally every single person that'd walk out of a door would make me jump, or every dog. Like this dog right here. Hey, buddy. I'm almost home now, but it's been rough. I mean, even those plants, you can't see them because it's too dark, but they're so scary. And you know what the most ironic part about me saying all this is that all week long in my English classes, we've been talking about the horror genre. And with horror, we had to make a list of everything that makes a scary movie scary. So I told my students I don't want examples of scary things. I don't just want you to list clowns, dark alleyways, nighttime, zombies, vampires, etc. Tell me why a certain scene of a horror movie is so scary to you. And so all my classes came up with a pretty consistent list. And that list was something like this. The number one thing was suspense and the unknown. Whenever there's something that you don't know what's gonna happen or something you can't see but you sense, you get really, really scared. Number two would be supernatural things. Number three is any kind of violence or gore. Number 4 would be some kind of isolation or feeling like you're all alone and there's no one that can hear you, no one that can rescue you, you've been abandoned. Another thing that you could sum up would be just a sense of dread. And dread is defined as any kind of knowing or certainty of feeling that something bad is about to happen and you don't want it to happen. And this isn't quite the same as suspense. Suspense is more like small scale, in the moment. You know, you sense something about to happen. You don't know what it is, whereas dread, you know something bad is going to happen. Number 6 would be evil wins. And with that, I would add hopelessness. When you lose hope and you feel like everything bad is going to happen and evil is going to win, you are utterly hopeless, and that is a state of horror. Another really common one is something familiar being twisted. Something familiar that you know, that you're comfortable with, but there's something off about it. For instance, an intruder in your home, or a friend where, you know, their eyes might be a different color, or something creepy like that where, you know, it's something familiar that we all know, but it's slightly different. So all my classes had a list something like this, and we went through every single one, and I asked them, do you see these anywhere in the gospel? And this might seem kind of strange to many Christians because we imagine the gospel free of horror, free of any kind of violence or suspense or fear of the unknown or isolation, dread, evil winning, or familiarity twisted. And yet, if we really stop and think about it, every single one of these shows up in the gospel narrative. For instance, Jesus says 7 things when he's on the cross. One of them, perhaps the most famous one, is Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus was isolated, first by his disciples, then on the cross by his own Father, whom he had been in relationship with for all of eternity past. Do you feel like his disciples had some sense of dread when he was on the cross? Do you think that they had a sense that evil had just won? Do you think that they could have felt hopeless for the 3 days before he rose from the dead? Do you think there's any violence or gore found in the gospel narrative? Do you think there's anything supernatural found in the Bible? And again, is there suspense? Now, to us, growing up probably in a Christian culture where you know the story of the Bible, you know exactly how it ends, we might not feel like there's much suspense. But to someone hearing the gospel for the first time, or for the disciples who didn't know what was going to happen Sunday morning, the gospel is ripe with suspense and the unknown. So in other words, you take these elements of a horror movie and you see them as building bricks in the gospel. In other words, let me put it a different way. If you were to remove all of these things from the biblical narrative, you would have an anemic gospel. You would have a gospel that doesn't tell the entire story of God being whipped and having the skin torn off of his body and hung on a tree with gore flowing from every single part of him. You would have a gospel narrative that's fit for Sunday school, but not necessarily fit for saving the whole of humanity. Christians need horror in order for salvation to be fully completed. We like to clean up and tidy up our gospel messages. We like to make them seem like they're not really that scary or violent or bad. But if you do that, you're ripping off the Bible. You're not giving it its full capacity to tell the story of the salvation of the world. Now, what I'm not saying, especially for my students watching, is that you need to watch horror movies in order to be a Christian. They're not for everybody. That's fine. Most of them don't really contain truth per se. But what I am saying is if you try to make the gospel this clean, happy, peaceful, story about a guy named Jesus who holds lambs and children, then you don't really have the Jesus of the Bible. You don't really have the story of the Bible. The Bible's filled with blood beginning to end. Ever since Genesis 3, there's been blood, 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 blood. And now's the perfect time to talk about it with Halloween right around the corner. So I hope this sparks some discussion, or at least some thought in your brain for you to be thinking about. Like, we tend to run the other way, or at least many Christians tend to run the other way when they see horror or fear or scary things. And I think that it's worth taking a deeper look at. Again, not everyone has to watch horror movies and love them, but it's worth thinking more deeply about than this is bad. That's never a good way to start Christian thought with this is bad, this is good. That kind of leads you to a lukewarm, inch deep, but mile wide Christianity. Anyways, guys, that's just some fun thoughts for today. Why do Christians need horror? Do we? Comment below what you think. I want to hear what you have to say. I got a lot of pushback this week from my students, so I'm sure that you guys have some thoughts on that as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget about the merch store. Check it out. I'm dropping new stuff on there like every single week, even if I don't promote it. So I'll always be checking back with different designs based on a lot of the stuff I write and the videos I make. So it all kind of ties together, and that's my visual outlet for creating things. So go check it out if you haven't, e3no.com/shop. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again for watching. Bye. Look how scary my house is to come into at night. What's in there?